When I tried in earnest to try to breathe new life into my channel, I made an effort not to make it too much about drama.
1 week later.
So that was a fucking lie.
Alright, let's record this real quick then we can go to bed. Oh, this is the one nerd again trying to capitalize on the new trends like never before. Okay, but seriously, I don't really plan on making new videos this fast, at least not all the time, but when a topic comes up that I feel like I have something to say on, I feel like I should say it. Today we're going to be talking about the latest Netflix show that's been sweeping the internet, that being Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. Before we get started for real, I do want to say that this is going to be full of spoilers, but I will try not to spoil too much, just kind of the broad stroke elements. If you're watching this, then you've probably already seen the series or at least known about the twist due to certain Twitter users blasting it all over to see. And I will be talking about it as well, but wanted to give some warning. So, now with that bit out of the way, with a little bit of a disclaimer, let's talk about the twist of the show. When this anime was first announced and being advertised, you could think that it was just going to be a straight-up adaptation of the original comic. I think one of the factors that led people to this was that they were able to assemble the original cast for the live-action film, including names like Brie Larson and Chris Evans. Sitting down to watch the new series, the first episode seemed to be all normal. We got the same plot points as the comics, and the art style fit for both looking like an anime and looking like the original comic. Even my favorite character, Knives, looked and sounded just like her old self. Then, as the first episode came close to the ending, we started the first battle of the evil X's. The first punch was thrown, and...
K.O.
I won? I won!
Wait, what? Legit, when this moment first happened, I had to actually look up to make sure that there wasn't some sort of fake out in the original comic as well, that I just forgot about it because it's been so long. But no, Scott seemingly dies, and the second episode opens with his funeral. Everything is turned on its head as Matthew Patel, Evil X who defeated Scott, confronts Gideon, leader of the League of Evil X's, and takes over the League and all of his possessions. Yes, that's a lot to take in. You can only imagine how I felt actually watching the thing. Point is, the story now focuses on Ramona as, after a dream, she discovers that Scott is not actually dead and investigates her exes to find out who may have faked his death. So yeah, quite a different pitch from the series that I'm sure people were expecting. But what follows is a story of Ramona going through a few of the same beats as the original story, confronting her different exes and even working with her problems with them. I won't go into too much detail on the finale, but essentially, Scott does come back. Time travel is involved, and Scott has to confront a future version of himself who made a few mistakes that past/present Scott needs to learn from. In between, we also see little stories and new situations for the other characters. Ramona and young Neil get a little bit more to do, as well as Scott's gay roommate Wallace. Not to mention Knives. Kim has a little, but not enough in my opinion. It's funny that I think Julie has more new screen time than Kim. Although Kim does get probably the most detailed animated lesbian kiss in animation history.
No sparks.
So that was cool. But let's not talk about the changes, at least not yet. Let's talk a little bit more about the reaction because, whoa boy, it's been a trip. I saw a post talking about how interesting this all would have been if Netflix was not one to dump the whole season at once. And I have to agree. If we had just gotten the first episode today and had to wait a whole week to see what happened next, I think it would have brought up a lot more interesting talks, at least in the fan community. But I guess, to be fair, it would probably be the same as the discourse that's going on right now. Yes, it seems a lot of Scott Pilgrim fans were upset about the direction the series took, some of which I follow and some of which I don't remember really hyping up the series beforehand, but I'm sure that's nothing. I did see a lot of Scott Pilgrim fans reacting very positively to the new series, and those were the ones that you'd more expect. A lot of comparisons were made to the Masters of the Universe Netflix series, which sees He-Man being killed off in the first episode and focusing more on Teela, before having him come back later on for the final battle. And while I do see the surface level comparisons to that, I think the major difference between the two is that Masters was a sort of mid-plot at best that tried to do something a little bit different, while Scott was taking a different direction from the original source material. That being that Masters of the Universe wasn't really taking on any kind of specific story and mixing it up. It wasn't an adaptation. It was just a new version of these characters, as Kevin Smith sort of put it, sort of a sequel series to this. Although I guess you could say that this new series is kind of a sequel series to the original Scott Pilgrim, so maybe they are the same in a lot of ways. One thing I'm definitely seeing in regards is the weird focus on being specifically upset that this focuses on Ramona rather than Scott. I saw a tweet floating around of a few people were referencing, talking about how Scott was still a loser with no development, which is just a lie. The finale is not something I'll talk about, like I said, it should be experienced. But needless to say, both of these characters grow. This is not some crap about how the story is being changed for modern audiences, despite what some articles say about how it fixes the problems of the original book. That's not what this is about at all. This is not about hating men and propping up women or any of that kind of crap. It's just a different take on the story. From the original writer, I might add. Yes, I would be all for giving this show the side eye for changing the story if the original creator had no involvement in the project. But this show was developed by the man himself. And frankly, with the recent discourse about the endless supply of remakes and reboots that manage to do the same thing but worse, it's nice to see a project that takes some risks to do something different. I do like how this is something that not everyone can go into blind. What I mean by that is, you really need to have read the original comics or watched the movie in order to understand what's going on, since the series really starts with the impression that you already know who these characters are and are already invested in them. I saw somebody say that this is sort of like a trilogy. You read the comics, you watch the live-action movie, and then you watch the anime, and I 100% agree with that. That should be the ideal watch order for this series. So if you are just a casual fan who wanted to wait to read or watch the story until it got adapted into an anime form, you might be a little confused. And of course, I had my own issues with the new series, but they mostly came off as little nitpicks. Like Ramona's actress, Mary Winstead. I think she did good for the most part, but she clearly has not done that much voice work. Because when she needs to do any kind of emotion that requires her to raise her voice at all, she's a little muted. That could have to do with her just not having a lot of experience with voiceover work or direction or what have you, but obviously she had to be there because they brought back the original cast. It's also a little weird that Michael Cera doesn't get to play his past or future self. I mean, what's up with that? Dude is already not in most of the show, let him get paid. I mean, Ramona Flowers gets to keep her voice actress for her future and future self. Why not Michael? But despite that, I would encourage Scott Pilgrim fans to give the show a chance, if you've not already, which if you are a fan, you probably already have. Scott Pilgrim is getting a big revival lately. It's actually getting a re-release of the original comic in a nice hardcover form in both black and white and color. So if for some reason you haven't read this comic yet, I might wait for that before jumping into this anime. Of course, it's going to be around for a while. And of course, with this new direction also means that there might be more to this story. I mean, the ending of season 1 did tease that there might be a season 2, which would be great. We could see even more of these characters, new stories, and not just another adaptation of the story. Despite being a different story, it has a great mix of humor, fight scenes, some great animation, and of course the Easter eggs and references. Just give it a shot. If you don't like it, that's okay too. I've been talking to a couple people on social media who always talk about the reason that I'm talking about this and the reason I'm doing this is because I don't want people to criticize things I like. That's not what this is about. If you watch this show, and if you're a genuine fan of Scott Pilgrim or just a casual fan or whatever, and you genuinely don't like the direction that the show went and you wanted a straight adaptation, I understand that. It's just like with the Final Fantasy remake. Some people wanted a straight Final Fantasy remake, and I was in that same camp too. I was a little disappointed by Final Fantasy Remake as well. But I think it did just enough to be just different but just the same to really keep my interest. And I think this is pretty much the same thing. I don't think that all fans will like this. I think that a majority of them will, but I think that some fans will not like this. And I understand that. I understand why people wouldn't like this. But to go off of the opinion to not like something or to dump on something just because you saw somebody on Twitter have the same reaction as that, I mean, that's just lame. Think for yourself, watch the show yourself. And again, if you don't like it, that's fine. If you think that this should have been a straight up adaptation, I understand that. But this is the direction that he wanted to go. And this is the direction that I feel like, it might have some interesting twists and turns. Again, we might get a second season. And again, not just to finish the original story, but to have brand new stories. So I think that this should get all the support that it needs. In the meantime, if you have your own thoughts or feelings on the show, I encourage you to leave them in the comment below. I want to hear what everybody thinks about the show, what they liked, what they disliked, and if you feel as though I'm giving the show too much praise, let me know. Let's have a dialogue about it. And of course, leave a like and sub for more videos down the line. This has been The One Nerd, and I believe in you. You can do it.